and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Canal Algérie's Midnight 30 Bulletin. To the headlines. The new Algeria embarks on the path of development on various sectors, overcoming all challenges while putting the citizen at the top of the priorities through a strong leadership by the President of the Republic. Also in the bulletin, agricultural production outside of dates is booming in Biskra. Farmers address their aspirations to further expand the production and the challenges they face in the report coming up. Lastly, the delegation of the Confederation of African Football, or CAF, concludes its inspection of the sport facilities placed by Algeria in its bid to host the African Cup of Nations 2025. Welcome again. First in our news, Algeria is committed to development. The first achievements of its policy are manifesting, and all sectors are concerned by this dynamic initiated by the President of the Republic in order to bring stability at different levels. Manan Ammari has more.
Stability is among the great achievements accomplished in the new Algeria under the guidelines of the President of the Republic, which has been on the rise in recent years in various sectors. Namely, since the President continues to give instructions and guidelines to address the situation. Stability is now tangible and is showcased in a country that is not isolated, but is part of a bustling world that is in constant movement. When consistency and resilience are not within reach of many countries, however, Algeria, strengthened by its people, succeeded in this area. The stability achieved is the result of dialogues that the President personally held and chaired, calling on each occasion for its adoption by the ministers by opening debates with social partners and heads of diplomatic missions, called on to hold talks with members of the national community abroad. As for the new Algeria's culture, stability remains a great challenge, seeing as it exceeds its conventional notion to be the course of action adopted by the President of the Republic to reach the major objective of satisfying and ensuring the citizens' well-being. The President of the Republic continuously works to guide the government and the Council of Ministers to place the citizens at the center of their concerns through the implementation of his programs and projects that are considered a priority in accordance with his 54 commitments. During the latest Council of Ministers, the President of the Republic enjoined to hold government meetings only if necessary and to direct all efforts towards fieldwork. Members of the government were also called on to carry out visits in provinces according to priorities regarding development and the citizens' daily concerns. The head of state severely warned ministers against false promises recklessly made to citizens within an unreasonable period of time. He also insisted on the rigorous respect of citizens and the overall sentiment and all steps taken, since the people's satisfaction is the only evidence of good performance, in order to build a strong Algeria.
The Prime Minister Ahmed Ben Abdelrahman chaired on Wednesday a cabinet meeting that discussed the following issues. In the field of justice, the government studied a preliminary bill amending and supplementing the law regulating the profession of judicial reporter submitted by the Minister of Justice, Keeper of the Seals. In the field of youth and sports, the government listened to a presentation by the Minister of Youth and Sports on the ongoing preparations for the organization of the Pan-Arab Games in Algeria. In the field of transport, the Minister of Transport made a presentation on the establishment of the National Civil Aviation Agency, as well as a presentation on the start of the construction of the Catering Service Center for Air Algérie. In the field of microenterprises, the Minister of Knowledge, Economy, Startups and Microenterprises gave a presentation on the new approach adopted to make the performance of assistive mechanisms more efficient. Biskra province is witnessing a significant diversity in its agriculture production, confide dates, tomatoes, and other types of vegetables. More details from El Gharous municipality with Hasna Zoubilir and the story taken up by Sabrin Tafrginit.
Covering 40% of the national agricultural production, Biskra province is the model to follow. Taking the example of El Gharous municipality, where the majority of its production is tomatoes.
300 هكتار نتاع زراعة المحمية.
We have 300 hectares of greenhouse agriculture. Almost 60% of farmers produce tomato and zucchini, which represents 300,000 quintals.
والكورجيت. الأغلبية مركزين على الطماطم والكورجيت.
Here, the farmers didn't hesitate to expose and discuss the obstacles they are facing in this specific field.
كنشوفوا المعاناة تاع الفلاح اللي هنا واش راهو يعاني. نبداوها من
We have different difficulties starting with the greenhouse. The plastic was costing 290 dinars per kilogram, but now it's 420.
Talking about the seeds, the price went from 12,000 to 17,000 dinars, and sometimes it's not even a good quality. These problems affect directly the price of the final product, and even with such price, the farmer won't have a real profit. This province is also known for its dates. Al-Ghrouss itself produces almost 220 quintals of dates with more than 310,000 hectares of palms. And to increase this production to its fullest, experts think that technology should be involved.
In the context of the fight against terrorism, combined detachments of the National People's Army arrested 5 elements supporting terrorist groups in separate operations across the national territory, while a hideout of terrorist groups containing 5 bombs was discovered and destroyed during a search and sweep operation in Tizi Ouzou. As part of the fight against organized crime and in continuity with sustained efforts to counter the scourge of drug trafficking in our country, combined detachments of the National People's Army have arrested across the military regions 41 drug traffickers and thwarted attempts to introduce quantities of drugs from the borders with Morocco amounting to 18 quintals and 76 kilograms of processed kief and seized 63,730 psychotropic tablets. Detachments of the National People's Army intercepted 87 individuals and seized 33 vehicles, 84 generators, 46 jackhammers, 2 metal detectors, 2 tons of mixture of raw gold and stones, as well as quantities of explosives, detonation tools and equipment used in illegal gold panning operations, while 18 other individuals were arrested and 2 hunting rifles, in addition to quantities of foodstuffs intended for smuggling and speculation amounting to 367 tons and 17 quintals of tobacco and 72,000 units of various pyrotechnic articles were seized in separate operations throughout the national territory. Similarly, the border guards, in coordination with the services of the National Gendarmerie and Customs, thwarted attempts to smuggle large quantities of fuel amounting to 147,485 liters in Burj Baji Mukhtar, Suqahras, Taraf, Tbissa. On the other hand, the Coast Guard thwarted on our national coasts attempts at illegal immigration and rescued 177 individuals aboard homemade boats, while 928 illegal immigrants of different nationalities were arrested throughout the national territory. And in international developments, 18 Moroccan cities will begin new protests of anger against the normalization of Al-Makhzan with the Zionist entity on the occasion of the Palestinian Land Day. The Moroccan Front for the Support of Palestine and Against the Normalization revealed the list of cities that announced that they will join the protest, including the capital Rabat. And this under the slogan, "Let's make Land Day a day of anger against Zionist colonialism and solidarity with prisoners." And on the Palestinian issue, a Palestinian was injured on Wednesday by the Israeli occupation forces bullets during their raid into Askar camp east of the city of Nablus in the West Bank. Dozens of Jewish settlers stormed the Holy Mosque of Al-Aqsa with the support of the occupation forces and executed provocative tours in its courtyards. Arab reactions continued to condemn the continuation of daily attacks on Palestinians and their holy sites. In France, and after the 10th day of mobilization against the pension reform, clashes broke out between demonstrators and the police. Scenes of violence were also observed, while the showdown is far from over between the Macron government and the unions. Story by our correspondent to France, Afaf Belhouchat, commented by Rania Al-Bahri.
Scenes of violence and indiscriminate arrests between demonstrators and the police. These images are becoming increasingly frequent with every anti-pensions demonstration in France. Yesterday, no one escaped from these clashes. On the contrary, in addition of the fight against pension reform, we must also add the fight against repression and for freedom of expression. According to a report, 210 arrests and 175 police officers were injured, according to Gérald Darmanin, the Interior French minister. Forceful arrests denounced by the opposition and denied by the government and its allies.
We
don't want to retire at 64. That seems very clear. There is no parliamentary legitimacy. We are through democracy. The extreme left mocks from pension reforms and aims for rebellion against the Republic and overthrow it to make France a new Venezuela. The Human Rights League condemns the police repression against the demonstration of March 25th, which caused many injuries, where 2 persons are in critical state. The French government is struggling to keep order, seeing as protests and strikes are increasing day by day, especially now that there is a bigger youth turnout.
During the month of Ramadan, the Algerian television is presenting various programs, namely the Had al-Arwah competition for religious chants, where the first competitive evening of the program took place on Tuesday. This show follows professional standards and has already presented many religious chanters in its past editions. And in sports, the delegation of the Confederation of African Football, or CAF, concluded its visit by inspecting the sports facilities that Algeria has placed in its bid to host the African Cup of Nations 2025. The delegation inspected Mustafa Chakar Stadium in Blida, in addition to Douira and Nelson Mandela stadiums. And on Tuesday, the delegation visited Constantine in order to inspect the Shahid Hamlawi Stadium. With that, our news edition comes to a close. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.